What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for the first episode of Cities Skylines, a city builder put out by Colossal Order this week, which I'm thinking is going to be a pretty fun game. Now, this was not a game that I was planning on playing on the channel. I do enjoy city builders, but I tend to keep them off the channel just simply based on the fact that I'm not very good at them, and by and large, I don't know, it just invites a lot of negativity. And so at the front end of this, I'm going to let you all know that I am not very good at this game. My city is probably going to be a ridiculous, burning, fiery, acid-spewing, dragon-riding train wreck. It's going to be really, really bad. However, I think we're going to have a good time playing the game because I put a couple of hours in last night, and I found it to be a really pleasurable experience. The game is going to have a little bit of trouble, I think, differentiating itself from Cities XL and SimCity, but that's city builders in general. I mean, how much variation can you have within the confines of a city builder? So that out of the way, I think Colossal Order has done a good job at making a game which is accessible and can have the amount of complication that you want it to. And so in the interest of getting back into city builders for a little while, here it is, Cities Skylines. Let's ride out. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to pick ourselves a map. Now, I've played a couple of these. I don't know which one I feel like playing right now. You can enable and disable left side traffic if you want, which that's a great feature. I like that a lot because it allows people to represent wherever they're from in the way that they best see fit, and I think that that's pretty sweet. I actually played around with it last night. However, we're going to leave it on right side traffic right here. I live in the Bay Area, and I've already got ideas for how I want to do this, so I'm thinking maybe Diamond Coast. Somewhere, I don't know if there's anything, so there's Lagoon Shore, but that actually looks like it might be a tiny island like you might find off of Florida, or I'm not even sure. You can't really tell from the preview, but I want to go with something that's definitely representative of where I live, and I'm thinking Diamond Coast is looking like the one. Kind of like the Marin Headlands Bay Area type place. You know, I'm over by Vallejo or whatever, like I'm up in the actual bay, but I lived for a long time up in Petaluma too for a while, so you know, I am familiar with the area. I've lived all throughout my life, and I want to build a city in an area that looks like the place where I come from. So let's try out Diamond Coast. It's hard to tell from the preview, but I'm hoping that this is going to work out. And then we're going to name this, let's name it Bimington. There we go. I learned something this week, and so we're going to call this Bimington. The natural resource. It's got a little bit of oil. It's got ore. It's got some farming resources, and it's got forestry resources. So we'll have trees, we'll have a good bit of bud, because obviously we're trying to represent California right here. We got some rocks. I know we got all kinds of rocks in California. I stepped on one the other day and busted up the side of my leg when I was jogging. Oil resources, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I've got oil in my kitchen, but I think that's about as far as my oil research, or my oil, but let's ride. Come on. Alright, everybody, well, welcome to Bimington. I think Bimington, let's have a look at what we got going on right here. That's actually a little bit more riverish than I expected, but yeah, it's kind of bay-like. It's sort of bay-like. It also looks like an elephant with very, very small, adorable ears. Is it the Asian elephant that has the little ears, or the African? I think it's the Asian that has the little ears. So there we go. This is now Elephant Bay. From now on, I mean, we could call it the Bay of Snurfers, because I call elephants snurfers because they look like they would snurf a lot. We also have this weirdly wang-shaped on-ramp that's going into our city. And so I suppose, like, you couldn't just change the angularity on that, like, slightly? These off-ramps are weird. Hold on. Let's look at the... So the traffic is flowing. I can't really look at it up close, but the traffic is flowing that way. That's a little bit severe of an off-ramp right there. I'm sensing a lot of accidents. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm sensing a lot of accidents in this area right here. Yeah. It's just... See, so this should just kind of, like... It comes off a lot more smoothly. That right there, it's a little bit round, but maybe I'm just being pedantic about it. Either way, it doesn't bode well that the on-ramp that goes into our city looks like a giant just... God. Looks like a pud. Alright, well, let's get the hell out of here. Let's go ahead, and we need to start building some roads. So the game is very, very simple. I'm going to do my best to explain things along the way that I'm doing. So underneath your roads tab right here, actually, let's just talk about the UI in general so that people that are interested in purchasing the game can check it out. So you've got this little bar. This is just time passing. All that it is, I do wish that you could switch the date around so that it would be more accurately reflected for my geographic area. So for me, it would be 3/14/15. However, I get it. It's all good. You have your happiness over here on this side. This is going to be your population count and how happy they are. You can also access that through some of your various tax collection and related menus. This up here is Chirper, which is essentially you've made the most giant mistake as a leader ever. You've given your people access to talk to you through the internet. And so they basically just sit up here and they tell you what you're doing right, they tell you what you're doing wrong, and it works out pretty well. Think of this as sort of like, you remember in the original SimCity, they would have those full motion videos that would pop up every now and again, and they got really repetitive, but they would pop up every now and again with like the police chief, or with the fire chief, or with the engineer in charge of roads, and they would tell you like what was going right and what was going wrong when you clicked a little button. Same thing, but they've replaced it with Chirper, and now you just kind of like read the prompts, and if they're like, oh, we need more water, you're like, okay, let's build some more water-related resources. I figure what we should start out with, is this fresh water though? This can't be fresh water, can it? Because it's coming off the bay. Do we have to get desalinators? Maybe we'll figure it out in just a second. Let's go ahead and get our road started, because without a good road infrastructure, you aren't going anywhere up in this town. So I figure the way that I'm going to do this is we're going to start out with a couple of very, very large sweeping roads that come into town. The other thing that you might consider, there are other methods right here that you could go for. So if you wanted to build other types of roads, you can also make roundabouts, which I love roundabouts. They've just started to crop up here in Northern California, but seriously, this is the greatest invention ever. Like, we need way, way more of these. The roundabout, I mean, until you find somebody that's never seen one before and they're just like sitting in the middle of it, just like, what do I do? I'm so confused. It's all round and circular. Where's my familiar light bulb that tells me when to stop and go? Please, light bulb, help me adjust my velocity in a manner most suitable. I'm like, yeah, we don't have those anymore. We got a roundabout now, son. Better learn how to use it. Okay, let's get off that tirade. We're not going to talk about traffic right now because this entire video will take an overtly negative tone. You can pause the game by pressing the space bar, which is what I have done. You got the name of your city right here. If you ever need information about the game, you can click on this right here. It'll tell you what's going on. Basically, how many workers, how many people you have, overall happiness, how many zoned buildings you have. So if you've got too much of one thing, too much of another, you need to bring things up, you can do that. Once again, this is going to be a horrible playthrough. Rest assured that this graph down here is going to be awful by the end of the game, but we should be in the black, which is all that really matters in this game. So I'm not going to build towards our forest over there. I'm going to save those as forestry resources for the people that want them later on. However, every town needs a main street. And so in the effort of making a main street, I think I'll start right here. And let's just go this way. How about that? That seems all right. It's a little bit expensive. If you're looking at what I'm looking at, it'll say construction costs $3,000 when you're dragging out roads or doing it, whatever it is that you're doing. I wouldn't recommend that you dragging out roads. I would actually much more prefer that you use Caltrans for that, even though, you know, Caltrans is what it is. Roads created by dragons, inconsistent. Very, very inconsistent. Good at hoarding gold, good at general wisdom, amazing at spellcasting, bad at road creation. So just bear that in mind as we go into the future. I figure we'll try and keep some of these, well, let's start out simple, shall we? The first things that we need. So we need water resources. So we're going to click on, actually, let's do electricity first. We're going to need electrical resources. So I'm going to put the electrical resources on the edge of town. The reason being is that the coal plant makes a lot of noise. Now, later on, we'll be able to retrofit and we'll be able to go through and we'll have wind turbines. We'll have, I think you also get oil plants. Okay, there's got to be a hydro plant. And then additionally, there's solar power plants. So at the end of the game, you'll have a lot more options. But for right now, the only real tangible option you have in order to deploy a power grid is to put down the coal power plant. And I'm all right with that. Coal power plant works for right now. It's not like a long-term solution, but it'll do it for the moment, I guess. And so we'll bring this down to here. There we go. If you're wondering what these white lines are, these are the confines of our building area. Did I make that crooked? It looks really crooked to me, but maybe it's just my angularity. It is. It's my angularity. Oh, thank building Christ. I had to make sure you got to pray to building Jesus every now and again, especially when things are looking a little bit crooked, because that's his domain. That's like what he does. He files the paperwork on that. You got to put it in with building Jesus, and hopefully he will look down upon you and he'll be like, yes, my municipal light will shine down upon your public works. Let's see here. I'll probably put in the power station right. I mean, if I could fit it on that side, I'd fit it on that side. But there's our first power station. That's going to set us back a pretty considerable amount of cash. I think it was, how much was it? 19,000 credits. So yes, indeedly doodly, that thing's going to hurt us a little bit, but it's a long-term investment to make sure that our people have power and that they remain happy. The next thing that we probably want to get up and running, we need an inflow and we need an outflow. Oh, this actually, it goes the opposite direction that I thought it did. Okay, well, the water flows that way. You can tell by the little arrows in the water. That's how you can tell where downstream and upstream are. I'm a little bit... That's our only water source, so I'm assuming that this is going to be a little bit brackish, though. I guess if it's an outflow, it should be fine, though. It should be fine. And what we want to do, because the water flows that way, you want your intake. So this right here, this is going to be sucking up the water and sending it to the city. And so in the interest of sucking as hard as possible here at the Nerd Castle. There it is, and I might be doing this wrong. This might not be the best way to do this. Don't trust me for anything in these videos. I might be doing this completely and totally wrong. Full disclosure, I'm not good at stuff like this. I just enjoy making pretty cities and then walking away at the end of the day, so stick with me. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put an outflow, and I'm going to keep the outflow a little bit further away from the intake, because what's going to happen is over time when you put this down, because this water is stagnant and rotten, what's going to happen is it's going to make a big puddle right here, and as the puddle hits right here, it's going to start to flow out to the sea, and it's black water or gray water. They refer to it as different things in different places, but it's essentially sewage, it's drainage water, it's actually water that's used for fields that's runoff and things like that. It's all kinds of nastiness, and you don't want that near your intake. So had I reversed these buildings, you will have problems later on down the line, because if you have your outflow upstream from your inflow, that's not a good thing. It's kind of like pissing into the wind. It's not going to end well for anybody. So I'm going to put this a little bit further down right there, and then we need to get some pipe works going. And the way that I recommend doing this is I usually just connect these two right there so that it becomes a combined pipe like so. If you just run one right here, you've got to make a full circuit, and then you're going to have to connect it with the outflow later on. If you connect them right here, you put out double pipes all the way into town. You won't have to worry about running both pipes, I think, for quite some time. I tend to like running things sort of like this, and I'll show you in just a second. So I like to take things out like so. And this might look like a little bit of overkill right now, but bear with me. It's going to be okay, I promise. And once I have this, as this needs to expand into the other areas of my town, I find it makes it very, very easy to just like create little perpendicularities of pipes along the way, and it can just cover the entire city. Is it ineffective? Sure. Or, I'm sorry, is it effective? Sure. Is it inefficient? Absolutely. It's horribly inefficient. But if we were going for top-notch gameplay here at the Nerd Castle, I would have disclosed that at the beginning too. I could put in another pipe right here. I don't know if I should though. Meh. I'm sure everything will work out just fine. Let's get our power grid up and running too, and this is going to be kind of clumsy of me in the way that I do this. If you're wondering what these little grid squares are, these are your zoning areas. So in previous building games like SimCity 2000, you actually created these little areas. In this game, everything has to be facing a roadside, and I don't know if that's a change that I like or not. It's an interesting change, and it makes the game flow a little bit differently because you really need to plan your roads very, very well, and that's part of upper level play in any SimCity game anyways. But it kind of removes a little bit of your freedom to be goofy and just kind of like do whatever you want. So anyways, in other city building games, you would create these little grid squares down here, and then you would fill them in with your residential, your commercial, and your industrial in kind. That's all going to be respective to the way that I clicked through them. Industrial is going to provide jobs for the people in your town. Commercial is going to provide them with stuff to buy, and then residential is going to give them a place to live. And so as you unlock your population, I actually like the way that this game flows. The reason being is thus. The way that the game flows is actually sort of incremental. You start to unlock more and more tabs as your city gets larger, and I like the way that it eases you into the gameplay. Now, on your 8th or 9th city, it's going to take a little while. I think there is an option somewhere where you can actually turn it off so that you start with everything. However, I like the way that it eases you into the water. Even though I am a jump into the pool type of person, some people like to ease in, and I'm glad that they provided options for that group of players. Let's get started on actually building something, shall we? It seems like a good idea right now. And so I'm going to start out by zoning. Sure, that seems pretty good to me. The way that cities tend to be laid out, at least where I live, is that you tend to have layers of residential, punctuated by commercial, and then industrial is always on the edges of town. That's how it is out here in the Bay. You will never find an industrial zone like in the middle of town, unless you're in like Martinez, because Martinez is basically like one big industrial zone. Still, in the town that I live right now, the city anyways, it's going to be residential, residential, residential. You probably go like a big 10, 15 block of residential. You'll hit maybe a line of commercial, and then after that, you're back to another 10, 15 lines of residential, and then another commercial park. So I'm going to try and lay things out in that fashion along the way. I'll probably give them a little bit of an extra road right here, just to help traffic flow a tad better. I don't know what's going to change in the future, but we want to leave ourselves room to grow if it becomes necessary. Let's start out without any citizens. We can't really do much, can we? So let's start out. You can actually change. So right now it's in fill mode. You can click on these little guys down here, and these are each going to do different things for you. So you've got fill mode, you've got marquee, which is click and drag, and then you've got the painting tools, a small brush and a large brush. And so that'll allow you to handle your business whichever way you see fit. I tend to just keep the marquee tool the entire time. I like it better than most of the other tools. I haven't played around with them a whole lot though, but this is going to be our first little block of residential housing. I don't know what the most efficient grid of residential houses to have is. I don't know if this is going to negatively affect us later on down the line, but let's just have a good time with the game. How about that? I'll do my best to be entertaining and kind of like say funny stuff, like pointing out the fact that a weighing leads into our city. And then on the other side, you just sit back and enjoy. Let me handle all this. And if it all comes crashing down, well, then I suppose it all comes crashing down. But that's the risk you take when you get up on the internet. So let's get a little commercial zone right here. Maybe some room for a quickie mart or something like that. Yeah, that'll work out right there. That's looking pretty good. And then we can also... I don't know if they actually actively need a road right there, but I'm going to leave space for it just in case we do later on. You can never tell until you actually like slot it in. And so I may be overdoing it with the roads right now. Let's see, how's our cash doing? 22,000 credits. Let's start the game up. So for the first time, the game is actually functioning right now, and you can speed or slow up the game by clicking this little button right here. Additionally, there's a hotkey for it, but I never use hotkeys because I'm a giant sloppy noob like that. So what can you do? I kind of like the steady production of electricity, but there are environmental factors to consider. Hashtag OMG. Well, fine then. Hooray, the water pumping station has been constructed. So since we did that all... Oh, we've got to power that. That would probably be a decent idea. So for our power grid, it's slowly going to spread along the side of our city. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Hold on. Okay, so we'll wait for something to develop over here. Instead, right now... Ooh, I kind of built this in a dumb spot. This road should be one over so that I could put it maybe even 2 or 3 over so that I could put the power station here and then run the lines off the grid so that it doesn't waste space. Ew, you can relocate buildings for a penalty if you click on it, I think. Yeah, you can relocate it, but for right now, I'm going to stick with my municipal iniquities and just like not complain. As you can see, the city grows into itself. It's pretty cool, is it not? I like the way that things develop. It looks like it's turning into a lovely little residential suburb, the sort of place where dreams go to die and you pick up a job, I don't know, managing paperwork or something. It seems like that kind of place. I don't know, this is pretty much, I mean, no, I lived in a city with about 150,000 people, so I lived in an actual, like, city, and basically there wasn't much to distinctively set it apart from the next city over. Once you get into the Bay Area, it's kind of like when you get into Los Angeles. It's all just sprawl anyways. You can call it Oxnard or Van Nuys or whatever you want. Likewise, here in the Bay, you can call it, you know, Fairfield or Sassoon or whatever the hell you want, but it's all basically like the same big city mass. It's got different governmental bodies, though, so I guess that's kind of what differentiates it. I do not like my decisions right now. I made poor decisions with this power plant, and I'm just seeing it. I shouldn't have. It should have been flush with the side, and then I should have left a 4 or a 2 by whatever on this side so that I could have ran the power lines out. So, sunspot activity. High scientists are glued to their telescopes. Cosmos, our stars. Sorry, that's not something I would talk about. I enjoy talking about science, but unfortunately, that's outside my jurisdiction. For right now, let's just make it work. Let's just make the whole thing work for right now. How's that sound? And then we'll deal with the ramifications and make it all a little bit more orderly later on. I think this actually physically has to go inside the blue space in order for it to work properly, and you can just click to attach these. It's very, very simple. Everything in the game is incredibly intuitive, and that's one of those things that I will credit the developers with, is these games tend to suffer from overcomplication, or there's a lot of like moving bumps and hooks and knobs. This game actually does not really have that. Like, the complication is there, but they've made the game like delightfully easy to just like set stuff up. If you just want to play with the painting tool and do nothing the entire time that's like really efficient, you can do just that, and like nobody's ever going to be like, you're doing it wrong. Like, the game is eminently playable in its current state. Let's take these back over to here. Let's do a little residential sector back up in here. I don't know if I should build them roads. Like, I don't know. We're cutting across the power lines right there. See, I'm going to have to fix these eventually, but I was just trying to get power to the citizens. Hey, what's going on with the waterworks over here? Oh, I didn't run the pipes. That's unfortunate. Okay, so let me get on that real fast. I'm going to try and keep these perpendicular, and it locks into perpendicular, by the way. Like, everything in this game naturally locks into perpendicular space, so just in case you're fascinated or obsessed with things being perpendicular, you can do that. Not too difficult. Not too difficult in actuality. Go to right there. Give us a little bit more pipe, but we're really going to want to focus on expanding the city right now. Probably in this direction, since the infrastructure is already laid to make this work. We're in the black pretty heavily, the way that I would suggest fixing that is by putting in industrial sectors along the edge of town. Industrial sectors tend to pay pretty well. However, they do pollute and they do cause noise, so you don't really want them anywhere near your residential zones if you can help it. I haven't tried to put them right next to the residential zones and just sort of like see what happens, but my assumption is that it probably won't go so well. Now, this should negate some of the need. The power grid should arise around this area. If we take a look at our power grid, as they start to build buildings over here, the grid goes underground, and so what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to pop out the power lines on the other side, and that'll look a little bit more efficient. For right now, keep an eye on this deficit thing right here, because that's what we're trying to outrun. Hopefully we don't go into the red. If we do, what you want to do, you want to spend the money now rather than later, so that you can have people moving in and, you know, populating your town. So there it is. We'll go right there. That's looking pretty decent. Yeah, I like it. And then on this side, let me get one more road smacked in, which I think I can actually get rid of this guy right here and that guy right there. And I don't know if it'll let me. Oh, it will. Good. I was hoping it would let me build that. That makes me happy. And so now what we want to do is we'll actually set this up like so, so that hopefully that line right there will hit the power grid before too long. I hope, anyways. It says that it's disconnected. However, I think that means that it's not ending. We got to wait for this to develop a little bit. So rather than, well, how about this? We're just going to take it into the corner of town right there, and that should work out once things start to develop. We're waiting on this over here, so let's go ahead and start the game up real fast. And as buildings start to pop in all these green zones, it should fix our problem for us. Namely, that building right there will fix the problem. It says we have water missing. Oh, to our industrial zone. Okay. Well, let's run a bit of water then, shall we? I'll probably take some pipe works over here. We're just trying to get into the black right now. That's all that I'm really concerned about. We got to grow the city, because until it gets a little bit larger, you're essentially going to be financially bankrupt a lot of the time. We should be able to get at least into the black slightly. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, if you're in the red, it means your books are red. It means you're losing money. You're bleeding out. If your books are in the black, it means you are earning money, which is a good thing. So for right now, the principal concern is whether we wait this out and we see where, as the residential area develops, if it's going to even us out on cash. And I think that it will. That's all that I'm interested in, as I want this little number to be green right here. You note that our deficit is becoming smaller and smaller as the days go by. We will have to fix the water grid in just a second to keep our people happy. So let's extend that out a little bit further, spend a tiny little bit of money, and then these buildings cannot function normally without water. And so my recommendation would be, let's just spend the money now and let's get them up and functioning, because it may be affecting our ability to produce textiles and everything else that we're doing in our city. And so there it is. You can actually see the cash starting to flow a little bit. We're gaining $4 per period, and that's pretty good. I think that's going to work out great for us. You can see our industrial sector is springing to life. It's producing some cash, and we have achieved the little hamlet. I enjoy a hamlet every now and again. That's a baby pig. No, I'm just joking. I like ham, though. Ham is actually, I'm not a big fan of ham now that I think about it. I like honeyed ham, and I enjoy bacon quite a bit, but actually, I prefer turkey. I think this is where I'm going to break off my first episode. So my name is Splattercat. I realize we didn't get a whole lot done right now. This is essentially just me playing around in creative mode. I am going to mess something up along the way. Feel free to shout at me, scream at me, and tell me I'm stupid if I'm doing it wrong. I'll see y'all later. Hi-do, everybody.